Keep your hands and head inside the vehicle at all times. Buckle your seatbelts, check your mirrors, sit on back and relax. It's lights out and away we go for the Tall and Short of It podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tall and Short of It podcast, coming to you live from Max Verstappen's helmet. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm Aaron. Like Justin said, welcome back, everyone. Another fun episode of the podcast today. Really glad you're here to listen with us. We have a lot to recap from the F1 race in Saudi Arabia. We've got a lot of League of Legends playoffs that are either mid-progress or on the horizon, and then some Magic the Gathering talk to wrap us all up today. Justin, good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you too. Looking forward to a good episode here. How are you feeling for this week?
I feel pretty good. It's I'm looking forward to just the rest of the week being over. Looking forward to this upcoming weekend, just to have a weekend to kind of like chill. But otherwise, not doing too shabby.
Very good, very good. Now, before we get into the meat of the episode, you want to cover some just little bits and baubles from the week? You want to go through our Rose, Thorn, and Seed here?
Yep, sounds good.
Start me off there, my friend.
So for my Rose, I really got to have a nice weekend for my birthday this past weekend. So,
Belated?
Thank you. So some good dinner with friends, which was nice. Celebrating with Colleen and all, which was awesome. She is a very she's a very good gift giver in terms of like she'll think of the thing that you would least expect, but it's like always hits the mark. So she the one main thing that she got me was a waffle maker. And it's something that I've mentioned a couple times, just like as we're browsing through. Like, it wasn't something that I was like, oh, I need this. It was like, oh, I would love to make some waffles on the weekends sometimes and this and that. And so waffle maker plus, and I have it here to show on the screen, she got creative, used some ideas she saw online, and made a really kick-ass birthday card for me. So I want to share it for the people. So, there's enjoy your birthday to the max.
Hell yeah, that's cool. Popping the what is that? Champagne.
Yeah, and then I got you the best birthday Ricard. Oh.
Wow.
So
very corny.
It's super corny, but it's my sense of humor. And she actually put the effort in to like go out and find stuff and make that. So I had to give that a little shout out because of course it suits the episode with the F1 talk and all. So that's my Rose for this past week. For my Thorn, I'm gonna go on a small rant, and because I know I've talked about it before, and so I don't want to go too crazy with it. But the healthcare system in the United States is absolute bullshit, and I've experienced it in like the past month in every like different part of it. It's just sucked. Like I submitted all my paperwork to get on my company's health insurance, and the guy at our corporate office like just didn't file it with Capital Blue Cross like they were supposed to. And I'm like trying to call to schedule an appointment and everything, and I'm like, oh, I need to get my number. I like went on the website, logged in, set up my account. I'm like, oh, I need to get a number or my member number or whatever to give to my doctor and make sure that everything's like kosher, yada yada. I go on and they're like, yeah, you're not in our system. I'm like, all right. And of course the guy who didn't submit my paperwork when he was supposed to was on vacation for the entire week at the start of the month. Yeah. So took me a little while. Eventually, after all this nonsense, I'm good. Get my stuff going. And they're like, okay, like we've got you in the system. So I call my doctor. I'm like, hey, I need to schedule an appointment as soon as you can. They're like, oh, we don't have anything left this week, but we have Monday and Tuesday, Tuesday yesterday being like our next option.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, cool. I'm like, I think I work on Monday, so I don't want to do that because Mondays are usually pretty hectic. You're like catching up from everything from the week. I'm like, I'll do Tuesday. Like, okay, Tuesday, 9:30. Bada bing, bada boom. I'm like, great. Show up at the doctor yesterday, and they go, sorry, your appointment's tomorrow on Wednesday. And I'm like, Wednesday was never even given to me as an option. How is my... So the doctor messed up, scheduled me. My visits take 5 minutes, about.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't fit me in. I'm like, so what? Like, I'm like, can you fit me in today? I was told it was on Tuesday. It's what I booked. Like, not Wednesday. And they're like, nope, sorry. Like, do you want to come back tomorrow? And I'm like, I'll figure it out later. I'm late for work already because I came to this doctor's appointment. So now I'm like screwing over my people at work by not being there. And now I'm going to have to do it again tomorrow. So, dope. So, go through, get my doctor's appointment done today now. Submit, like, they put in my prescription and offer my medicine and everything. I go to get it today, and they're like, oh, you have a prescription deductible, so you have to pay at least $250 before you can just, like, pay your copay flat. So what did I do? Had to pay $250 for my medicine. And it's just such the insurance side is just whack. Because it's like, you pay a few bucks a month to be part of their little club, and then they go fucking, oh, hey, CVS Pharmacy. Instead of this guy paying fucking retail price on this, $450, they're like, you can give it to him for like 50. Mm-hmm. Just... he also has to make sure he pays at least this much before we're going to cover him. It's just, like, it makes no sense. There's no way that the disparity in cost of something... It would be like if you were like, oh, hey, like, someone's coming in once a month for a massage, and they're not sent there by their doctor. They're just, like, coming in. And you're like, okay, 60-minute massage, that'll be $500, please. And they're like, well, what the fuck? And you're like, well, hey, if you go pay like my buddy Aaron $40, then I'll give you a deal, and you can get the massage for $50 a month. And they're like, oh, that sounds like a deal. Like, I'll just pay fuck it. Like, there is no conceivable reason that something can cost $450 and $50 at the same exact time, being the same exact thing with no differences at all other than I pay once a month to be a part of your little fucking club. Like, it's just a garbage system. It's frustrating because no matter which part of it, it seems the system's not like cohesive enough for there to be fail safes for all these stupid little issues that I run into. And it's just like, I'm just frustrated with all of it. It's garbage. Like, give me universal healthcare. I'll wait a little longer in the CVS line. I'll wait a little longer for the doctor. As long as I get to see the doctor on the day that I fucking schedule it. And my medicine doesn't, like, they don't say, well, sir, we'll take your kidney and then you can just pay $10 next time you come in. It's like, dope. So that's my rant. I know I've talked about it before. It's frustrating, but that was just a big thorn that, like, bubbled over the past couple of days for me. I'm just like, I'm sick of it.
Yeah, especially, like, they are a hassle to do when it goes all properly and smoothly, and it's even more of a headache when you got to do it twice, 2 days in a row. They're fucking around with the times and just making it a big old headache. So, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah,
it's just, it sucks. It doesn't make sense to me that it should be that complicated. Like, I don't know. But it is what it is. I have to deal with it. The system, hopefully it will change, but for the meantime, like, this is what I got, so I just have to live. I'm just fortunate enough that, like, taking that hit is not devastating me in my life. I'm glad that I'm not someone who needs fucking like diabetes medicine and is working minimum wage and they're like, oh yeah, $600 for your month's supply of insulin. And like, I'm just like, that's half of what I make for the month. Like, I'm fortunate not to be in that position. So I digress. Something a little more fun though for my seed. Just been looking at and kind of planning out summer trips and everything, solidifying some plans, and also I booked a hotel for my friend and her fiance's combined bachelorette weekend. Planning stuff for family trip for the summer with my parents and grandparents and all. So looking forward to some of those fun things down the road.
Oh yeah, some warm weather activities sound just what the doctor ordered.
Definitely what the doctor ordered. No pun intended, I'm sure. But
not at all.
But Justin, how's your week been? What have you got for your rose, thorn, and seed? Tell me about it.
My week's been pretty good. I've got some interesting stuff here, so I'll start where you ended. I'll start with my seed. So me and Sarah, we've been trying to make some changes to how we just like run things behind the scenes, and so we took some time on Sunday to go through our website and, well, I guess like the listing that we have on both Google and Massage Book, Touch of Phoenix Massage, and we kind of changed some of our menu items, changed some of like our descriptions and bio, and looking to get some like photos up and basically just kind of update the practice for what our current situation is as opposed to what our situation was like when we were first setting it all up.
Gotcha.
Because a lot of the verbiage and a lot of the language was like, oh, well, this is where we've come from. Like, now come and try us out, like at like our new location here. But we were able to change a lot of that language, kind of update it, and yeah, just kind of bring it into like where we're at today. So that was really fun, and I think a big step for our like teamwork as well, where we were both able to set some goals, some things that we wanted to get done, come in, collaborate, check off all the boxes, and do a big old high five and at the end.
Nice. Well, and with that, did you guys go through obviously like updating things on the website and all? What do you guys use for that? Actually, just as a side question, just out of curiosity. Massage Book is like your website, or do you? Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
So they can find us at. So I think Massage Book is like half of a national registry for massage therapists and businesses, and then half like a hosting site where you can.
Okay, gotcha.
Like your business has a portal, so they can come and schedule with Touch of Phoenix Massage, but we're hosted on the Massage Book thing.
Gotcha. And so the other thing I was curious, have you guys done anything with like Google in terms of like setting up keywords and things like that will draw people to your because that's something that I feel like helps in terms of the clicks and who's like ending up at the top of like listings and things like that, is matching up those like keywords and also so that's all just good that you guys have that kind of all lined up, and nice that you're updating everything to reflect better like who you guys are as a business and all, and not
today,
like
not 3 years ago or whatever.
So wow, has it really been 3 years?
It's like 2.5 almost.
Dang, that's
gone
fast,
flies, man.
Seriously,
time flies.
That's insane.
So that's my seed, just doing some changes. I'll do my rose here real quick. I was talking, it was probably a couple weeks back, where I was complaining about just like head tension and just like just clenching my jaw and just holding so much like in my face. Well, I've been jamming my fingers in my cheeks, in my mouth. I'm like stripping my cheeks. I'm fucking digging in my temples and rubbing my head. I've been doing that like all week, pretty consistently. And I'm basically just sitting here watching YouTube videos with my finger in my face, just like trying to relax my jaw muscles. And it's gone well. I can feel a lot of the tension has like eased off. I'm super aware of when I'm doing it, so I make sure to, basically like engage a yell position with my face where I'm really trying to like yank my jaw down with my neck muscles to totally relax all this and just stretch out this whole sector. So it's been going well, and I just say it all to say, like, most of the tension has eased off. I've kind of reversed the holding pattern of, of jamming my jaw together, so I'm pretty pleased about that. And then my thorn is a little bit, I feel you, buddy. I had to get some routine maintenance done on the old Honda, and just a cool 500 bones later, they get it back to me in well working condition. And it's not a thing about the mechanics or where I took it or anything, but it's me. And always, like, for when you just go take your car in, most of the time you really just need like your VIN number and like your keys, and they're like, yeah, whatever, we'll work on it. But when you go get the inspection and the emissions, they need your registration and
I
your
just
insurance
said that.
card. Yeah. And thank gosh, I'm like, there's only a handful of places things can be with me. And so thank gosh they were on me, or I had access to them. Because, like, I get all the way through the check-in period, and finally he's like, oh, yeah, let me get your registration and your insurance card. I just want to slam my head on the desk. I'm like, God, let me go see if I have that. So I run out to the car.
Mine are always in the glove box.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's where mine was. But
well, no,
like,
but
well,
just
thank God it's there.
Yeah, exactly. Because that could just be such a pain in the ass. Like, you have to go onto your insurance company's website and try and download a fucking like registration from there, or like whatever else. That sucks.
Yeah, and they're just like tapping their watch, like, all right, like next, like, come on, man. And so got my car done and back, and everybody's happy. But yeah, I was just like, God damn, I got to be more organized. But yeah, so that was fun. Now on to, I think, the more interesting stuff, the thing that the people are here for. Let's talk about the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix at the Jeddah Corniche circuit for 2022.
Sounds good. And to start off, I did want to bring up briefly and kind of get your opinion real quick on. So there was an attack in Jeddah, like the day before. It was like this past Thursday, like the day before the race was, or before practices were supposed to start and all. And like there was all this hesitation and everything about having the race and everything, like talking about postponing it, because it seemed like it was kind of a dangerous time in the area and whatnot. A lot of drivers felt uneasy, but there was a report that came out that basically said, after like discussions with like Formula One technical directors and like all of that stuff, and like constructors and like teams and team principals and all, that like they decided to have the race. But there are also reports that came out that like a number of drivers felt kind of coerced into saying, okay, like I guess we'll race, because there was this like looming notion that if they decided not to race, it would become very difficult for the drivers and teams to leave Saudi Arabia, which is fucking crazy. And like, it's not that this is like some sort of like some big like boogeyman thing. Like, the Saudi Arabian government multiple times has like held people from leaving the country and held their planes on like the tarmac for just indefinite periods of time due to, there was one that happened with, I believe it was a soccer team, that they were making some negative remarks about Saudi Arabian government just in general, and like they like halted their plane on the runway for like 6 hours just to like fuck with them for not doing it. So I can't, so to imagine like how that could go if you're like, oh yeah, this thing that's bringing in millions and millions of dollars into the country and everything that's like set up to happen and all, like, oh, it's all of a sudden not going to happen. Like Saudi Arabian government, I think, would be a little more pissed at that. And then alongside that, with how potentially dangerous the circuit can be, and their F1's still just going back to Saudi Arabia next year, and they're just kind of like going where the money is and all. I just like, it doesn't sit quite comfortably with me through all of those situations and everything that F1's just like, yep, we're going back. And it like, they get Russia, the Sochi Grand Prix, Russian Grand Prix off the calendar because of everything going on there. And then there's an attack nearby in the same city as the F1 race, and the people are like, yeah, we don't, the drivers are like, yeah, we don't feel super comfortable. And they're like, sucks to suck. Like, you're already here, so you can't leave until you race.
Well, it doesn't seem like you're already here. It seems like we have pen to paper and a lot of contracts that would be broken if you didn't race.
Well, wouldn't there be a lot of contracts with like the Russian Grand Prix and canceling that? Like,
sure, but that's like, that seems,
is that
it? I don't know if it's different. I don't know what you mean by an attack. Like, did a bomb go off? Like, was it just small arms fire among a family that disagreed? Like, what's the context? Because the way it sounds to me is like, if it's okay, so the drivers met to decide.
So there was an oil depot in Jeddah. It's like Saudi Aramco's Jeddah oil depot. It was hit by a militia attack and like blown up, like huge explosions, like crazy fires and stuff like that. And so like militia attacks in the area that like messed things up. And then there was like, I guess, a meeting between the FIA or Formula One direction and like the government, and then from there to like the team principals and the drivers got to have kind of a sort of meeting to discuss like what they were wanting to do for the weekend. And in this meeting they were kind of like, oh, and like multiple drivers have come out and said that, like, mentioned that it felt like they were being told like, oh, you can, like, you don't have to race, but if you don't race, we're going to make it really difficult for you to leave the country.
Yeah, I hear the language, but there's something about all this that's telling me, like, I don't think this, like, it's being painted with a bit of a, like, a, what am I trying to say here? There's a sense in which it'll be hard to leave the country, like, from a country's perspective. That kind of makes sense to me, and especially if it would be based on, so all the way down, the FIA is like, yeah, that's fine, we can have a race here as long as you, like, guarantee security and safety and blah blah blah. And then they go and talk to the team principals, and the team principals are like, yeah, that all makes sense to me, like, blah blah blah, this is fine. And then it goes to the drivers, and then the drivers are like, we don't feel safe, we're kind of uncomfortable, we feel a little coerced. Like, dude, there's a world where, as a racing driver that's going to be hitting all of these countries and nationalities and cultures, there's a certain sense in which, like, not that they should be willing to be around explosions and small arms fire to do their job, but there's a sense in which, like, it doesn't seem like it should be up to the drivers, is what I'm getting at. It seems like it should be team-wide decisions and organization-wide decisions that the drivers would just be a small part in. I understand that they're the ones going around the track and yada yada,
Yeah.
but it sounds to me like there's just a bunch of details that we don't have to like speculate. Like,
Right. But like at the end of the
what to
day,
think about a government's interaction with like a governing body of an international sport. I can't even begin to wrap my head around something like that.
Yeah.
But the whole like make it hard to leave, that just sounds to me like a country that wants to uphold the agreements that they've made, and in a world or in a city, in a place that is obviously more susceptible to events like that happening, they're seeing it as like, yeah, we know, but like it's not that bad. Or they may have a different feeling about it and say like, well, that was like 20 miles away. We can guarantee your safety over there, blah, blah, blah. The whole making it hard to leave, that is kind of tough, but there's a sense in which they're just saying like, come on, just you got 3 days here. Let's just do the race. I can see it from both sides, but I don't imagine they were being as malicious as it comes across. That's kind of what I'm getting at. What do you think they're going to do? Fucking indefinitely hold a bunch of Formula One drivers?
Yeah. Like, yeah, I do.
No fucking
They've
way.
done it to Olympic teams. They have done it to Olympic sports teams.
Okay, I want to know who those Olympics teams were flying with. Was it Arab, like United Arab Emirates Air or something? Because like,
no, it was like their private planes were not allowed to like take off from the like airport, and it's like shit like that. I will have to find the information, but they like.
So is anybody like getting murdered, or is anybody going missing?
I mean, not that I'm aware of, but like,
right.
It's still like
so they're costing them time. Ultimately, is what we're getting at.
Or, well, I mean, for all we know, I mean, obviously, I think that there would be a huge international like issue if they did it for too long. But like, they were told that the government would make it make their lives very difficult if they did not want to race, and like that doesn't make sense at all. Like, we've seen other instances of like things happening around the world and serious situations and things like that, and like things get canceled. It happens. Like when the Boston Marathon bombing happened, they canceled a bunch of other sporting events and different things like that were in the area. They weren't like, well, that happened like over in that part of Boston, so like now like the Red Sox stadium is perfectly fine. They're like, no, there was a bombing in our city, so we're just gonna not have these events. Like, that's what most places do in that kind of situation. Is they're like, oh wow, this horrible thing is happening close by and we're concerned about safety, even to the slightest extent, because we just don't know.
Right.
So like, we're just going to cancel things. Like I think that's a pretty standard precedent for a lot of things like that.
I think using Boston and Jeddah as a comparison are like really kind of rough, in the sense that there are.
I mean, I get that an F1 weekend on its own is definitely bringing in a ton more money than like a Celtics and Red Sox game that are on the same weekend as like that that happened. But I just, if the drivers don't want to race, like, because they feel unsafe, I feel like that's a reasonable reason to not race. I feel like that's
okay, but that conversation should be had way before they even get to Saudi Arabia, like regardless if a bomb just went off over there or not.
Like have some sort of like, oh well, if something, like, I feel like that's a weird thing to like prep for, like, well, if we were to go to any of these places and something were to happen, like, not knowing what the situation would be or anything like that. I feel like it's hard to set some sort of like expectation ahead of time. But it was just, I thought that was a pretty odd thing. And also with the track itself and kind of how I don't feel like it's the safest track. I think there's also a number of other tracks that have very like high speeds and fast paces, but like Jeddah is kind of top of my list in terms of safety and all. And for like this to happen with the attack, for like Mick Schumacher's accident, which we're very fortunate that he's okay from going like so crazy fast and crashing, drivers all weekend who both have been driving for a while or are coming back into it complaining about how painful it is on their necks and everything going around the circuit because of the high speeds and everything. F2 in the sprint race had a number of accidents and incidents. There were Nicholas Latifi like slammed into the wall both in I think it was FP1 or qualifying and the race. And like there are a number of
last year.
There are like 6 this year or something like that, and not all of them being like accident issues. It just the circuit and all of this together, just I don't get why the FIA or why Formula One is just like, yep, we're going back next year. Like it just doesn't seem like, even with the attack and everything, even the fact that they decided, hey, they'll race, like they talked to the head of Formula One, like direction, the constructors and all, like came to this conclusion. The drivers decided to go along with it.
Right.
Like the fact that was even a concern or an issue in general for the weekend, whatever solution, whether the drivers eventually ended up deciding, yeah, like we'll race or whatnot. Mm-hmm. All these things combined, I'm just like, there are other places you can go. Like, why are you're the only reason they're going to Saudi Arabia is for the money. And I get that the FIA...
That would be the same reason they go to any country, though.
But, like, for Saudi... It's Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, like Abu Dhabi, those countries, like the races there...
In the Middle East.
Cost a lot more for the countries, like, paying for the races to happen. Like they are paying to be on the calendar, whereas other tracks like Monaco and like those places definitely are like they have to pay something to have F1 races there, but their cost is not the same. To have a race at the Red Bull Ring or to have the race in Jeddah, the race in Jeddah, they're paying a lot more to have the race there than they are at the Hungaroring.
Right.
So in that way, it just looks bad to me because it just looks kind of like a cash grab by Formula One when they've talked about there being enough interest in having races to have a 30 race season. There's enough interest out there from different circuits and different places that they could have a 30 race season. And you can't fill that one spot with like somewhere with safer track for the drivers and like safer overall for everyone. Like it's just, I don't know. It's puzzling to me. And I know that there's a lot that comes to play in those decisions. I don't know if there was like a long-term contract that would have had to be canceled with Saudi Arabia to have it in Jeddah, and stuff that I didn't like really follow up on looking into. But
Right.
so
Well,
there's
hold on.
yeah.
I still have some thoughts here. So with the thing about the pre-agreement, where you were saying that it would be weird to have like a clause where if something would happen during the race, you know, you're given the opportunity to opt out of the race. Like the races in Italy or the US or in fucking Germany or wherever, I don't think have as high of a potential for military action as the Middle East. So what I'm getting at is being that Saudi Arabia is paying out the ass to have this thing there, and so this is what I'm getting at is it gets all the way down until just the drivers are talking and saying like we don't feel safe, we don't feel comfortable. I think from that point of view, it's easy to be empathetic towards Saudi Arabia because then it is like, okay, all of these other people agreed, and then just the drivers are uncomfortable and feel unsafe. Yeah, I would want to make it really hard for them to leave my country too, because it's these individuals who are effectively sucking the whole weekend. Not it hasn't been up to the whole organization. So my concern is how much weight should the word of these drivers have? Maybe it should have more, maybe it should have less. It just sounds like there's so much more at play than just like, you know, a bomb goes off here, they shouldn't be allowed to have a race, they're being malicious towards people. I really have a hard time accepting that painting of the scenario.
I mean, I definitely understand because obviously I think we're both fully under the impression that the worst case scenario for the drivers is that like things would be like an inconvenient, like a relatively decent inconvenience if they decide not to race. But like the meeting was with senior figure team bosses, drivers, F1, the FIA, like all of those people
So everybody was there all at the same time.
It was like, yeah, it was a bit like a whole meeting with everyone together. And so the things that I was reading seemed like drivers eventually came to the conclusion like let's race along with like the teams and everyone, but probably with it in the back of their mind that life could be made inconvenient for them if they decided like sorry, we don't. And personally, I think the drivers should have the most say in all of that situation because they're the ones that are essentially irreplaceable. I mean, they have subs and reserve drivers and all, but they're the most irreplaceable part of that whole situation. And they are also the ones who are the most at risk health-wise in terms of everything for the weekend as well. Like driving or in general, they are the face, like if there were to be anyone, they would be kind of the primary people that I think would be in the spotlight for any situation. So I feel like they have to have a little more weight. Not like 90 to 10% decision or anything crazy like that, but like a little more weight in the driver's side because they're the ones who are putting themselves the most at risk in terms of their safety any weekend.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So I mean, I do like get what you mean in terms of like deciding to drive and all, but like I don't even like the idea that that's in the back of the drivers' minds, that like, oh, like the government could potentially stop us from leaving however long by grounding our plane or whatever if we decide to do something they don't like.
Sure, I gotcha.
Like that's just something that, like, there shouldn't be any time where something like that comes into play. Like, yeah, like I could see them being like, oh, like there's going to be like some backlash from the Saudi community and everything, and like from these higher up people if they're like, so like if they don't race, because a lot of people will be upset. People really want to see it. People really want to be there, this and that, and like, oh, there's money lost. I would completely understand if there's like backlash from the community for deciding not to race. That's understandable because people have their different opinions on it. But to think that like there could be like governmental action against them for just being like, no, I don't feel safe, is like wild.
I mean, yeah, for a U.S. citizen, that's wild. But like, that's what I'm getting at, dude. We're going to all these different countries, all these different cultures. Like, they have very different rules. They go about business very differently. They go about all these sorts of things differently. So like, trying to fit every situation into this neat little box of like, does everybody feel safe? Is everybody okay? Like, don't get me wrong. I don't want these drivers getting blown up in some fucking Middle Eastern country, but it's just like, this sounds, and I think this is my main hang up with this. This sounds so much more about global politics than racing, and I know nothing about global politics. Okay. So like,
I mean, that's fair too, which is like, I think it turned into a bigger thing than I initially meant, but I just like the whole situation, and I agree, like you do have to kind of act differently depending on where you are. Like, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, right, and all. But it's just, it's weird. I understand them going on with the race, but for them to just like immediately jump into like confirming next year's race there and all, and like the other things, like Mick like could have been extremely seriously injured from his accident. That was like very, like any accident on that track in those high speed corners. I know that they widened it, but if there's someone right behind someone who crashes, like, you're, one, because it's a street circuit, you're boxed in. Like, two, the high speeds and everything, and blind corners that you have as you're kind of weaving down those fast corners on the one side leave a lot of blind areas that you could just like fucking slam into someone who's just crashed and right, like have no idea. Like, there are other concerns about the track in general. Like, I'm glad to see that like there were not any serious injuries, but I would say, like, I mean, we've seen worse at safer tracks. So it's, there are multiple things that I'm like, I am just not convinced that the Jeddah circuit is one that should stay on the calendar necessarily.
I'm not convinced personally that it shouldn't be on there. Like, there are, I think there's some good reasons there, but overall, like the Latifi thing, or accident, and especially Mick, like, I'm pretty sure those were both driver error. Like, it's not like there were unsafe track conditions that led them to crash.
No, but the nature of the track, there are driver errors that happen and cause accidents at every circuit.
Yeah.
They happen all the time. I mean, how many different circuits did we see Mazepin fucking like go and do pirouettes and go spinning in circles on. Like, how many have we seen people like run off the track and be stuck in like beached in gravel and everything on the side? Like,
right.
They're going at crazy speeds in like a very like difficult piece of machinery to like. I think anything going that fast is hard to control at those speeds. So like, I just, they're tracks that are safer that give a similar vibe. Monza is another one that you have very fast track, very fast like straightaways. It's quick, similar to Jeddah in terms of that, but the risks and dangers, there's like big runoff areas. There's big areas between like going that fast on a street circuit. Like, it's not like Monaco. Monaco, like, watching it is kind of boring sometimes because they can't get going that fast. And there's so many tight, windy turns that are like slowing the drivers down and all, even though it's a street circuit. Like, I'm not against street circuits. Like, I think that they're a very cool aspect of Formula One, but like, ones that are that high speed are just like there are things that just concern me about it. And like, I hope that I'm just not proven right on any of my concerns, because I really do just want to see good racing, and like to kind of lead into the actual race itself. Like, we did get to see some really good racing. It's just the additional things, circumstances and all, like I could do without, and I am concerned that will, you can't do without them necessarily. Like, even next year at Jeddah, even without any outside attacks, anything like that, I still would be a bit concerned about the safety of just driving on it. Like, I hope that by next year, with like, now that we're into the new regulations and all, that teams will have a little better grip on their cars and like how they're setting them up and everything for the weekend and all. But it's I don't know. It makes me a little wary. I think there are other tracks that you could have like just as fun of a weekend watching.
Yeah, but also I'd be curious to see what your assessment of the track is had a bomb not gone off.
Oh, I think I still would have been, in term like I would have been still concerned about safety, just not about like their safety in regards to the government. Like, I still would be like looking at mixed crash. I watched the F2 sprint race. I watched the F2 race, like, in both their entirities. Like, the F2 race itself actually really didn't have too many issues, which was nice after like a lot of them in the sprint race and everything. So
okay, so then maybe the conversation isn't should this be on the calendar. Maybe the conversation is this probably shouldn't be on the calendar with a sprint race qualifying. You know, maybe you just do the one-shot qualifying. And then,
well, the sprint races in F2 it's not a sprint race qualifying. It's just like a mini race that like they get points for. It's not like they have qualifying and then they have a sprint race and then they have a full race, but your qualifying is like your position. I'm like pretty sure for F2 your qualifying position is your position to start for the sprint race and for the actual race. But
gotcha.
I'm not 100%, but I'm from watching that, I'm pretty sure that that's how they were explaining it laid out. I would know better if I knew the drivers better, but I'm still like, there's not many drivers that I know on the F2 grid or that I'm like familiar with yet. So, but either way, I just think that it could have used more conversations than the F1 just announcing, like, after the different things from the weekend to just immediately be like, and we'll see you next year. Like, I would have at least, like, appreciated some additional conversations about it, or for them to be like, we are addressing people's concerns with racing here. Like, we're going to be evaluating, and after evaluating the different concerns that people have in terms of driver safety, in terms of safety of, like, spectators and anyone else, like, they come to the conclusion of, like, yep, we're going back. It looks way better to me, like, going through that process, like, not just immediately after the weekend, than to just be like, yep, we're going back. They paid us money too. It looks like that's how it comes off. And that may not be 100% the thing, but it just, like, I don't know. It's just it's a weird scenario, and I don't think there's that many places that I would be in the same boat about. But if you can cancel a race after 5 laps under a safety car and give half points for it because of rain, I think that, like, militia attacks and blowing up oil depots for one of the biggest sponsors of F1, Saudi Aramco, is, like, a slightly concerning thing to, like, think about.
Not in the context of Saudi Arabia, like, not in the context of the Middle East. That's what I'm getting at.
But I don't think that it's that, like, as behind. Like, there are a lot of things that they're behind on, but, like, I don't, like, look at them as, like, a third world country. I don't look at them as, like, I feel like there are enough things in place that it should at least just be considered a little bit longer, or thought about when it's, like, not perfectly fresh. Like, give it a little time, think about it a little, like, in the future, after people have cooled off, simmered down, had time to process everything. Like, don't just dive back in. Just take a little time. Think about it.
How long
talk to people.
Like, the right amount of time?
I mean, you know? we have races. We've had races that weren't confirmed, like, whether they were going to be on the calendar or whatnot, until, like, very close up to the next season. Like, they have most of this season that they could do it. I'm not saying even take that long. I'm saying take more than a day, like 2 days, however long it's been since.
Sure.
Like,
well, and then on the point of canceling a race, it was, like, yeah. I see what you're trying to say. I just am not sure the
comparison is not, like, the best, but I'm comparing the closest thing that I have to, in recent memory, to, like, this.
You're saying they've stopped races for less.
Yeah. That's kind of my, like, and either way,
willing to cancel a race for rain, but not for a bomb.
Yeah. Like, or a militia
oil depot.
Yeah. Just, like, I don't know. It seems like it was a hasty decision. And, like, I understand that for the race itself, it had to be a hasty decision. And so I get that, like, meeting with everyone, getting everyone together and saying, hey, like, thoughts. Like, what are, like, this is where we're at. And they came to the conclusion of the race, and, like, if they came to the conclusion, like, that's what they decided and everything. But after just the whole weekend in general, it doesn't leave a great taste in my mouth to not just, like, say, hey, like, let's see if this is a good option. Like, fucking bring the drivers together after the weekend again, and like bring everyone together a little ways down the road and say, like, at the mid-season break, like, bring everyone together and say, like, hey, what do you guys think? How do you guys feel? Like, see how other races go in terms of, like, I mean, I'm hoping that these are isolated incidents. For all I know, the cars could just be extra hard to handle because of the changes in, like, the downforce and the different things, and like maybe we'll have other, and hopefully not, but maybe we'll have other incidents like the Mick Schumacher accident, and I like you pray that stuff doesn't happen, but it could, maybe that's something that I'm attributing to the circuit that's like more due to the like car and the nature of the new regulations, and we just don't know it yet. Hopefully not, but it's just things that I'm like, just take some time, think things through.
Sure.
So
yeah, I hear that.
So but either way, we can move along into qualies and everything. So I would say biggest story from qualifying, Lewis out in Q1, first time since 2007. I am pretty blown away by that, because and it sounds like they had the wrong setup for themselves, but even in P3, Lewis was 11th and George was 14th. So I'm kind of surprised how they go from that to George P6, Lewis P16. Like that really, and I know for everyone, I think that caught everyone off guard.
Yeah, it was definitely surprising, and it's so tough to make any reads on it when the teams like give you no information.
Yeah.
But,
well, and like I understand going from like when Lewis was in the press conference after qualifying and everything, they were like, oh, so like we've seen you come from the back of the grid and like make these great runs and all before, and he was like, well, we're in park firm, like you can't make any changes to your setup to the car from qualifying to the race. He's like, that's how I was in qualifying, like the race is probably going to be pretty similar. And so like I'm just surprised, because with George, at least, I think that they maximize the current potential of the car for it. And I just like the disparity between the two of those positions. I mean, George finished P6, and then like Lewis was down in, George finished P5, excuse me, and Lewis only made it up to P10. I'm surprised that they didn't set the cars up similarly for qualifying, because it seems like George, at least, they had his pit team or race engineer or whatnot, they had a better concept of the setup. Like that's a pretty big gap.
Yeah, I think Toto Wolff when they were doing the grid walk, I'm pretty sure Toto Wolff said they went for something like risky with Lewis's setup. Obviously didn't work out, and then instead of taking the start from the pit lane penalty, they just were gonna do just take the back of the grid and just try and work his way up. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure he made it all the way up to 4th or 5th during the race, and then that was the safety car, virtual safety car or whatever.
He had made it up that far, but that was without pitting. So he was on no pit stops, and had to pit at least once, and everyone else had already done their stop. So
fucking
that's true.
Die.
Yeah, that's true. He could have had a better shot at it, just like if the luck had gone his way. Which, I mean, talking about people with some bad luck this weekend, Checo had the worst luck, I think.
That's what I'm saying.
anyone. So yeah, like I think both of them ended up with some bad luck. I think it's harder in Checo's position though. I feel worse for Checo than I do for Lewis, and that's not just based on their teams, but based on the fact that like with Lewis, Mercedes was like holding out, hoping for like a safety car almost to get Lewis a free pit stop. Whereas with Checo, they're just like, nope, this is our strategy. We're coming in, and then the safety car happens immediately afterwards, and they're like, well, that was the worst timing that we could have possibly had for that. So, so yeah, I think that is. It's the way it goes. I think Checo had a good perspective on it, but I think like the difference for me is that like Red Bull got screwed by a safety car randomly, whereas Mercedes were like, we're going to use this strategy to try and hope that there's a late safety car and we just get a free pit stop and like get lucky, as opposed to Mercedes was hoping to get lucky as opposed to like
making their own luck,
or Red Bull like just having bad luck with Checo. Like they were hoping for good luck. Which I mean it's happened before, so it's not the worst strategy, or it's definitely not the worst strategy, but I feel like it's easiest to always kind of race under the presumption that there's not going to be something. Like you don't want to hinge your strategy on someone fucking up.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's probably a surefire way to not get a win.
Yeah, but I don't think that they're in the position to compete for wins. But it was such a weird, like, just the weekend for Lewis and all in general. It's tough, and so I guess we'll see how he bounces back from it. Obviously, he's been in these positions before. He's experienced driver. I don't think it's going to get him down in terms of like how he feels, but I think it'll be more so, is the team able to figure out these setup things and get the car in a good position for him to actually be able to utilize his talent and all to actually be towards the top of the grid and fighting a little bit. I think after week one, I kind of expected Mercedes to just like kind of slowly creep up, and like based on where they are, I don't think I necessarily expect them to. I mean, it's super early on in the season, but I didn't expect them to immediately jump back into the contention for the constructors. But I was like, oh, they'll probably make like inching forward progress and get like slowly better as the season goes on, and this felt like a big step back. But Valtteri now has beat both George and Lewis in qualifying, at least within the first two races, so that's pretty wild.
Yeah, and interesting too, like he's obviously still a strong like qualifier, and it seems like the car is pretty good. But yeah, overall, he's not like that aggressive or progressive of a driver.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he like floated back positions from where he qualified. So usually come race day, he's like still not doing so hot.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things, and like I have to give him some credit, because I did have my comments about him not being that good back early on in the pod, and then I have come to eat my words and appreciate Valtteri a bit more. But he does have that like, and I don't know if it's him or if it's maybe the car, because some of the cars do just have better like single lap speeds and whatnot to have a good qualifying run but lower race pace. So maybe that's what we're seeing, but I agree. Like I had talked about concerns about if Alfa Romeo was further down in the grid, like would he be able to work his way up through the field, because I felt like Valtteri was not great when he's in the middle of the field, and I think we're seeing that a little bit, but he's still been able to put himself in a pretty good spot in terms of qualifying and all so far to be getting some good points. So,
Well, not this weekend. He DNF with the engine problem.
right, but I mean, last week he had a solid points place and everything. So
Yeah. And notably, I think to your point, the Alfa Romeo car is capable of being up there. We had Zhou Guanyu as P11 in the race, so he's not too far off.
yeah, so it's gonna be a very interesting season, and I'm enjoying it so far because like we're getting to see so many different things, and we didn't even talk about like the battles at the top of the grid. I felt like, I mean, if we get to watch this kind of racing with Charles and Max all season, I would be loving it. And I mean, Sainz is not too far behind either, and Checo put in a phenomenal qualifying lap and was driving really, really well to start the race. So I think we, from both of their sides, could see some really some good racing throughout the season.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Sergio was chasing down Sainz at the end. I think he was taking off a couple tenths every lap, coming in from like whatever it was, like 40 to the closing laps. The one concern that I did have was at the end, it didn't seem like whatever was going on with that yellow flag was not like deterring drivers, or it didn't seem like anything was changing on the track, and it was really frustrating from a viewer's perspective where you saw like yellow flag, green flag really quick, yellow flag, and then it just cuts to Max and Charles like fucking burning out into turn one and just like boiling it. And it's like, wait, so what does a yellow flag actually mean?
So they didn't clarify it very well, but it was the they need to have like
purple flag,
or just annotations on the screen for the viewers, like, because it was yellow flag in like sector 2, and so that doesn't mean yellow flag. It's not like a safety car for the whole track. It's just that area, like it's like a caution, slow down through this area brief, like so that you can avoid whatever the situation is in that area. And so also with those, the yellow flag was kind of moving, so I think it was like
on and off.
Well, and I think it's because I'm pretty sure those were due to Ricardo and Fernando Alonso's cars dying, so the cars were continuing to actually move around the track too, so it was probably like sector 2 yellow flag, sector 2 green flag, sector 3 yellow flag, like that kind of thing. But they didn't have any differentiation on, because it was probably based on where those cars were on the track, where the yellow flags were being waved. But like they did not explain it at all to the viewers, and like you need to, because as far as I understand it, the yellow flag is for the entire sector. It's not for like the entire track. It's just that specific area. So I think that was confusing to a lot of people, because I was also sitting there initially being like, oh, yellow flag, and I was like, wait, green, wait, yellow, wait, like, what is it? Was that like a glitch from the like people up there that they accidentally hit the button that says green flag in the broadcast booth, and they were like, oh shit, I messed up, hit yellow again. Like,
I literally said that to Sarah when we were watching it. I was like, is that a visual bug? Like, did they like, yeah,
like press the wrong button? They're like, oh, they're right next to each other, and I'm like, partially colorblind. So.
Well, to comment about the battles up at the top with Max and Charles, it was funny, and I don't know if this was the mood or whatever, but the guy who was doing the post race interviews when he got to Charles, he was asking him about the DRS zone and like dropping back to make sure you get the DRS detection instead of them. And the way Charles like answered the question, it seemed very like, yeah, shut the fuck up so these other racers don't do it. Like it seemed like he was very aware that what he was doing on the track was like kind of like next level almost, and he was very like, shut the fuck up, dude. It was pretty funny. But yeah, that was insane. And I think we saw both of them do it in different locations.
Well, they both locked up at the same time too, coming around the last corner at the one point, which I was like, that's like, it's crazy.
It's exciting because they're like racing hard and they're trying to beat the other one by millimeters or whatever. It was really intense, and I think racing strategy like that developing shows that those cars really can stick near each other.
Oh yeah, yep,
and not just be side to side, kind of coming next to each other, and relatively being in clear air. So it's creating a lot of really what seemed like to be dynamic opportunities for the racers.
Well, and even like on that side too, like I feel like over the past few seasons, how many times you can probably think of a million times that someone was following someone, like getting into DRS, they're like 0.9 back or 0.95 back, and they get the DRS and they get up to like 0.5, 0.4, and then by the time they get around the lap, they're like back to 0.9 behind, and they're like, just that DRS gets them close, but then they can't follow, and then there's like, I gotta drop back again, and like they just like constantly just bouncing and fluctuating in that small, like they're always in the DRS, but they just can't get there because it's hard to follow. And so seeing that where it's like, oh shit, like Max is 0.8 back. He gets the DRS. Okay, next lap round. Oh, he's only 0.7 back. Oh, now he's only 0.5 back. Oh, now they're having to play chicken with the DRS line because Charles is like, if I don't do this now and stop him from getting DRS, I'm toast. Like those other in previous seasons, it was always like you're fighting just to like, you have to risk overheating your brakes or like whatever else to follow close enough to like get that opportunity. So I think that's a great thing for racing.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. My bad, I almost cut you off.
You're good.
What I was going to say is like it was also almost a strategy to not try and race people, where they would just try and beat on the tire strategy or the pit strategy or whatever. And because it would just cost too much to try and get an overtake done. And then how many overtakes did you see happen in the previous era where, they get the DRS, they get the overtake done, and
they're gone.
They're gone because there's no catch-up mechanic. You're basically like putting them in a massive just wake of a yacht, effectively, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, I think, way more exciting, and it gives opponent, the racer that gets past, I'll say, it gives opponent like options to get back in that fight or not even be out of it just when he gets the nose across. So overall I'm very excited for the types of racing that we've had in these last couple tracks, and we're really seeing people get their elbows out. It's kind of fun. Yeah,
it's fun, and it's good to see that everyone's been able to really do it so far with minimal like bumping into each other and minimal incidents and everything. To some extent, I wish that last year we had a bit more of that, the ability to do that between Red Bull and Mercedes. I feel like looking at it now, they both Max and Lewis definitely had to have their elbows out more to try and protect their positions and all and everything. And like we're racing, we're kind of forced into racing harder from track to track based on the difficulties that the cars had with passing and everything. So to see that, it's like one of those what ifs kind of thing that's in the back of my mind. Like, what if like they had those same battles but could have had the ease of following and like these different back and forths. Like we saw, I mean, those were some of the most exciting moments of the 2021 season when Checo was holding Lewis up and Lewis passes him and then Checo comes back at him and like they're going back and forth. That was some of the most exciting battles that we saw throughout the season. The other most exciting battles were typically like a car that was slower than someone else placed higher in qualifying, and they were just like Fernando Alonso in the Alpine just like trying to hold Lewis Hamilton back and like just by doing, and I mean that even those kinds of moments will come into play, I think, just as much with how things are now, because you can use your ability to defend and drive and put your car in certain positions to kind of predict and try and hamper your opponent to give yourself the best lines and the best position and all. So you can still do that and hopefully have those moments without the lack of other battles. So now we'll just have more battling across the board, which is fun for the viewers. So
yeah, well, and I imagine it's much more fun for the racers too, where
probably
it's not just like defeating where the car goes by. It's oh, I guess I'm out of here now.
Yeah.
They have a little bit of a comeback mechanic, which is pretty cool.
Definitely. So it's gonna be a fun, exciting season. But we have gone on quite a while with F1, so definitely want to with that initial conversation primarily. So apologies for that. That's on me.
Don't apologize, dude. This is what we're here for, and I don't think anybody minds.
That's fair. But we do have a lot of League of Legends to discuss as well. Briefly, I know we didn't really want to talk much on it, but LCS standings and all going into playoffs. Cloud9 lost 2 of their last 3, so they dropped down to second in the standings. Team Liquid hopped up into first. And then now for the LCS playoffs that we have starting, I believe on Saturday. Yeah, Saturday. We will have Team Liquid versus EG and Cloud9 versus 100 Thieves in best of 5s in the winners bracket to start the playoffs off. But were there any other notes about LCS that we wanted to mention before we get into some other league?
Not really, honestly. Just I think the top 2 matchups, TL versus EG and then Cloud9 versus 100 Thieves, I think overall they should be pretty good matchups. Although I think what we end up finding in the North American best of 5s is the first like game or two tends to feel, I don't know if it's like rigid or like it feels like NA is a little bit slow to start in their best ofs, and so yeah, we'll just see how it goes. Definitely rooting for Team Liquid and 100 Thieves.
Yep, same. No, I think it'll be some good series. I think Team Liquid, obviously being first in the league, it gave themselves the better matchup with EG with the 9-9 record. So I think that Cloud9 has a bit more work cut out for them for 100 Thieves. So that one will probably be a closer series overall. But EG has had some really good moments, so we'll get to see that shortly. But I know that there was a little bit of LEC that you wanted to discuss, one of the series. So do you want to go through that before we get along to the LCK and LPL?
Yeah, just some quick notes really. The from the Fnatic G2 matchup, the thing that I thought was kind of odd is some of their picks seemed odd and off given like the information that they had. Like, it doesn't seem. It seemed like they were focusing on champions that they shouldn't really have been. Like, I didn't understand the focus for Lissandra and Oriana into the LeBlanc matchup. Like, in pick and bans, I just wasn't convinced that those were the fights that you should have been looking for, or like the contested champs. Because no matter what matchup Humanoid was in against Caps, he had no problem. And it seemed like a lot of the pick and bans were like trying to not shoehorn, but like get good matchups for Caps into Humanoid. And overall, I'm just not sure. It really went that way. What was it, game 3 where G2, or what was it, game 2 where they got the win? I think they did some things good, but overall, it seemed like Fnatic just had a much better read of what to be picking, what to be banning, and just how to play out the rounds.
Well, and just to speak on that a little bit more, Humanoid played LeBlanc in all 4 games. And G2 played 4 different champions. So it was like, that's exactly what you're saying. Like, Fnatic had what they wanted, they got their pick, and then G2 just was like scrambling to try and find an answer for it, which is definitely not ideal. You're already from Champ Select kind of on the back foot, so it'll be interesting to see, just because I feel like LeBlanc is obviously it's a solid pick that's getting picked up pretty often, but it's not like an unbeatable pick. So it was almost like G2 was just trying to figure out a way as the underdog to try and kind of find an answer or find maybe a wombo combo or some sort of not cheese, but just alternative strategy that might give them an opportunity to win, and they just couldn't kind of figure it out. But I did also like to see Wonder in game 1 on the Jace, because that pick is something that we saw come out quite a bit in the LPL and LCK in playoffs, and doing a lot of work. So I'm not encouraging NA players to play it because of the whole NA Jace meme, but I did like that, and Wonder played it really, really well. He was getting some huge damage put out in to start off team fights, and just performed really well on that in game 1. So
yeah, big time. And yeah, overall, like you said, it did feel a little bit of like the underdog into the favorite, where they were just trying some of like maybe lesser tested but more off kilter type strategies. But yeah, like even the Yone pick, I don't know, man. Some of this stuff just doesn't seem like where you want to be focusing your energy going into the possibility of an international tournament.
Yeah, I would say so. I think if G2 somehow made it out, I think that they would be a huge underdog in MSI. If they somehow made it through, and like, I don't know, like Wonder and Humanoid like cough on each other and get the flu, and they can't play, and G2 somehow makes a run and wins in the finals, then like G2 is not going to be a team that I think international teams are really that concerned about the way they look right now. I think they have a lot of talented players, but you just have to have a better feel for it. Just felt like with how they were constantly switching up their champion picks like drastically. They just can't quite figure out what they need to do right now, or don't have a specific play style or a specific strategy that they know is best and feel comfortable being able to win draft to kind of get them to that.
Right.
So
no, I think that's well said. Yeah, I'm not sure anybody would be fearing them in international play, but GG's to Fnatic. They have the Rogue matchup here coming up this weekend.
Yeah. So and Rogue also went 3-1 in their series, so should be a fun matchup, and then we'll get to see the lower bracket, see what teams, see if Perks with Vitality are able to run the gauntlet all the way to the finals.
They may
So
be able to, man. They
yeah,
just might be able to.
but we'll get to see that this weekend. We'll see a little bit more action, but to get to kind of the main regions we wanted to talk about. Do you want to start with LPL or LCK?
Let's start with LPL because it wasn't like the marquee matchup, but I think it was a pretty good matchup nonetheless.
Was
Although the scoreline doesn't say it really.
yeah, and I would say like the biggest matchup thus far in the playoffs for LPL. Wouldn't you?
Well, I will say this. I thought EDG would have had a better shot against Weibo Gaming, but as far as an upset, yeah, I definitely didn't think that was going to be a 3-0 for Top Esports. I really would
Yeah.
have thought LNG would have taken the match.
Well, yeah, and I mean they both had the same record. They were only one game different in terms of their game record throughout the season, same series record. So I expected it to be competitive. So yeah, the 3-0 I definitely don't think tells the story of that matchup in terms of things. But the one thing that really stuck out to me from the Top Esports and LNG series was that Top Esports, I think, is a very scary team to be facing in these playoffs the way that they're playing right now. And so by that I mean we were talking about I can't recall off the top. Do you remember if it was Gen G or V5 that we were talking about how even when they got behind in games, like they felt like they were never like they weren't forcing fights, they weren't doing anything stupid, they were just kind of like waiting for their opportunity, and like where I feel like it was Gen G we were talking about, but I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, we were talking about the Genji versus Damwon series from like 2-3 weeks ago or so,
That's what I
and
was saying.
how like while they may have been down on gold, it didn't seem like they were ever out of it.
Right. And so that's kind of how Top felt like during their series against LNG because I mean they were down. They were down big at a couple points during game 2 primarily. I think they got down, or no, it was game 1 they got down pretty heavily early and were able to just climb back, but they weren't forcing things, they weren't doing dumb stuff. They were constantly like waiting for their opportunity to kind of come to them and just making sure that the gap didn't get too big. And then we're able to really turn it on and perform really well in that series and get the 3-0. And that is why I think that they're a very scary team, and I think that their matchup versus V5 is going to be really exciting coming up here for their next matchup, because those are some teams that are going to be able to like really fight it out. And I think that they're not going to give each other an inch because they know the other team, once the door's cracked open, they're going to just kick it the rest of the way.
Well, and then there's also, it's not only the don't give them the early game advantage, there's also the element of their pick and ban is that of which they're going to have some kind of mid to late game insurance where they can still win fights. So even I'm pretty sure in the series, the LNG versus Top Esports, I'm pretty sure we saw 2 out of the 3 games. Top Esports was down like 3-4K in the first like 10-15 minutes, like around the first dragon. They're down like 3K or whatever. So LNG was making moves. They were pressuring them. They were getting advantages. But yeah, Top Esports was able to, I think, team fight in a way that allowed them to capitalize on their win conditions. And I think the biggest example of that for me was Knight on Ari. I'm pretty sure they scooped it up for him
All
all
three
three
games.
games,
Yep.
and he looked really good on it. There was specifically I think it was like game 2 or 3 around the Baron pit where they were all just kind of shifting around, and it was Knight on Ari who was looking for like the engage, and he actually landed a charm on an out of position Leona and just started the whole fight off. So it was interesting that not only was Knight playing a role where he would have been able to like nuke any of the carries, it was clear that his team was looking at him as an engage, or at least a secondary engage. And the quickness at which they went on a hit charm was like impressive and scary. Now there were some missed charms from Knight, like specifically, I remember one. He was chasing the jungler down the top lane, threw a charm straight into a minion. So he wasn't playing perfectly, but I think he was playing in a way that was getting his team significant advantages, to the degree that I put a note here. I would expect V5 to either be trying to pick it away, ban it, or come up with some strategy against it, because we're likely going to see that in the series.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised. So I don't necessarily think it would get banned, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it get picked away by Rookie, because I think that Rookie, it's definitely in his wheelhouse. So we'll have to see, I guess, how it shakes out. Because the other part of that is the teams don't switch sides in LPL like they do in other regions as much. Like in the LC or the LEC series, it was for Fnatic and G2, it was back forth. Every team is picking, when it's their turn, they're picking red side as their, or blue side or whatever as their starting side. And then like in the Excel versus Vitality series, it's the same thing. It's back forth, red side, blue side, red side. Like,
and we're going to see the same thing in North America too.
Yeah, but then like just it causes and allows the picks and drafts to be so uniform, and for teams to really like focus what they're looking to do. And I'm sure that like, I think it's a really smart thing for LNG as the lower seed, I believe. I think they were one seed lower. No, they were a higher seed. So I'll take that back, because I was going to say that it's smart when you're playing 5-game series, you would have more times on whatever side you decide to pick on as the higher seed, to just focus that side, because, and like how your picks and bans are going to be for that side, just as it would be for the lower seed to like focus. They're like, oh, we're going to be on red side more than blue side. Let's just pick as many, or like, let's find a comp that we're comfortable with, that we think we can draft to, that gets us that on the red side, and just stick with that through and through, and practice that way. I think that is a interesting concept to say, okay, like maybe we won't have the priority pick and for what side of the map we want to be on, but like, let's just get really fucking good at these comps that we can get for this side, and like go from there. And LCS, LEC, I can't imagine. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be like, oh, we think blue side's stronger, so like we want blue side every time we get the pick.
Right.
So, but I think that V5 versus Top Esports matchup is going to be really, really fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to that. And of course we've got Royal Never Give Up awaiting their matchup between either JDG or Weibo, and I think that will be an okay. It'll be a decent fight. Two more 11-5 teams going at it, so we'll see how that shakes out. But I think that's going to be a pretty close in terms of skill. And I think the LNG and Top Esports series was very close, much closer than a 3-0 series depicts.
Yeah, very. Especially with the early game, mid game disparity. There were a lot of moments in there where it just looked like LNG was just going to be able to bring it back. But yeah, Top Esports played pretty well to kind of overcome those early game advantages, and then get them in the team fights.
Yeah. And so moving to the LCK, I know that we wanted to talk about Damwon and Gen G, and so similarly, at the end of the series, I would say Gen G kind of had that same. They were down, but never out. But that series was so fun to watch. I enjoyed that a lot, and watching Chovy and Showmaker go back and forth. Canyon and Peanut, it was a blast. But Doran, and I mentioned him, or I mentioned the Jace pick. He played that extremely well in games 1 and 2. I was really, really impressed, and to the point that it ended up getting banned out in games 3 and 4 after how well he played it. Because even losing game 1. He was doing crazy damage with that pick.
Well, and it seemed like, interestingly enough, Gen G. Yeah, it seemed like Gen G was building around it a good amount. I'm pretty sure they were also playing the. No, they had the Ziggs on the other side, but it seemed. This is the point that I want to make. It seemed like both teams were building around the poke comps more than any of the engages, or the poke comps were the ones that were kind of winning out in the pick and ban. And I think Jace was a big contributor of that. The Ziggs was a big contributor of that. But yeah, it was a different series than I expected to see, honestly.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not surprised that it was a good series. I mean, it's the 2 versus the 3 seed in the LCK playoffs. But Gen G, I mean, they finished their series 15-3 to Damwon's 11-7. That's not extremely close. So that would lead you to kind of expect Gen G to have a little bit better of a performance, or at least score line, than a 3-2 tight series where in game 5, I'm pretty sure I think it's Atlas, but whoever the main caster for the English LCK is now going to have to shave his head, because he said he would if Gen G came back from there. I mean, they were down 8K gold at 15 minutes or 20 minutes or something like that. Yeah. And he said something about, I'll shave my head if Gen G comes back to win this, and they pulled it off.
Came back to win it, yeah.
That was, I mean, super exciting series to watch. Lots of really quality play. And I think one thing that I wanted to mention, speaking of, because you had mentioned the Ari pick in the LPL matchup with Top, the Ari pick in game 5 for Chovy came up so big, and it's a big part due to the changes that they made to Ari's kit with the reset on the ultimate if you get a kill, because he had the opportunity to not only, after getting a double kill around the Baron pit, dash up towards top lane, get the I believe it was the jungler, get the Nidalee, I think, there going towards top lane, but then to be able to also run back down, flash across blue buff wall, and then dash in and get another kill to pick up. I think it was a 4-piece right there at the end. That changing the kit makes Ari really, really scary for some of these teams that have these really solid mid laners and kind of playmaking guys in the mid lane. That's a fun one.
I would definitely agree, and it's such a small change too, where it takes her from a champion that was good at like starting a fight and getting out, or going in mid fight, hunting for the carry, and then getting out. It like totally changes her playstyle. Where, as you described it, she was able to effectively hit like 1, 2, 3 positions by getting all of those resets, increasing the mobility. So the longer one of those fights goes, the more she's able to string a kill together, get another kill here. Like all of a sudden, she is just all over the place, just dominating so much ground in these fights that it almost takes her from this like bursty get out type champion to an extended fight like
Yeah.
gap closer.
And I think that it's such a healthy change to make too, because
Everybody has resets. Yeah, it's fine.
well, and not even just that, because you have to do it well. Otherwise you're screwed. Because say, okay, use 2 ultimate dashes and you haven't gotten anyone off or gotten anyone killed off in the fight. You have that last dash and you either have to say, I'm going to go in and hit all of my stuff and get this kill, or you are just in the middle of the enemy team and like in a bad position with no escape, no utility to kind of get yourself out of the situation. So now you are encouraged to play more aggressively, or encouraged to play in a better way than like, oh, I get to blow up one person and then I'm like hanging around the edge kind of throwing out damage. It's like, oh, like if I dive in and blow someone up, then I'm rewarded and get additional opportunities to reposition and play well. And I think that that's such a cool mechanic to add, because it's still, you have to hit your stuff to get that reset. You have to play it well. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, you're in just as bad of a spot as old Ari if you mess up and put yourself in a bad spot. But now you're rewarded for doing things well, which is playing like
risky,
a night, or just like playing it well and like getting the picks and dashing around, getting that auto spacing, you know.
You got to get the auto spacing in, man, or else what are we even doing here?
Exactly. So putting yourself in good positions to get kills and all like is rewarding, as it should be. It shouldn't just be like up like you did great, now sit on the outside and just kind of throw your Q out periodically. Maybe you hit a charm, like this or that. So
definitely gives you more effect in the fight. I would agree.
Yeah, and so I'm glad to see that, and it was like fully on display in the end of that matchup there. So congrats to Gen G on making out of that. That is, I mean, they're playing T1 in the finals for the LCK, so I think that's going to be a pretty interesting matchup as well, because although T1 has played so well and played so dominantly, they 3-0'd Kwandong Freaks and in their series. This Gen G team, you like, no matter how far ahead a team gets, you just can't count them out. And so that's just one of those things that's like, okay, like that's one to keep an eye on, which is why after seeing that from this Gen G team, it makes me a little wary of top esports and that matchup against V5, because I think that is a similar matchup to this one between Gen G and T1.
Oh yeah, and I think if anybody's going to give T1 a devastating loss in these playoffs, it's going to be Gen G. They have a pretty good read on the meta. I think they're doing similar things to T1 at least. So yeah, we'll see what happens when they come together and clash.
Yeah. So lots of exciting playoffs coming up, but that's about all we've got for the League of Legends topic this week.
Mm-hmm.
I know you got some Magic games in, Justin. You want to get into those a little bit?
Yeah, just some. I think I'll just hit like the main points. There wasn't anything like wow or crazy or anything like really exciting going on. I just want to kind of touch on the games that we had played and highlight the main ideas.
Well,
But
and before, just briefly, like with
sure.
what we were talking about last week with the disparity in decks being played and all, was that an issue that popped up this week at all, or was that something that you were able to address, or are you kind of just still waiting to see how that looks as you continue on with playing in the pod and all, or were these games not with the Commander 9?
No, they were with Ian and John and Ben, and overall, I think I'm just like, what would you say, just gonna be patient because the main idea is I play more Magic than them, so I'm going to see these cards more than they are in a play environment. So I have to kind of temper that where like for every time I see a Ristic study on Ian's board, he's he hasn't seen any on an opponent's board, right? But where I've played into the Esper Sentinel, the fucking Ristic study in like CDH pods where it's in every blue deck, it's in every white deck, I have an exposure bias is what I'm getting at.
Gotcha.
So I think I have to like hamper my expectations and say it's unreasonable to expect these cards not to be played wholesale,
Yeah.
but I also have to understand that like there is a Goldilocks zone, and I'm not sure we've crossed the threshold into not fun territory yet.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing to keep an eye on in terms of the newer guys to the group who are playing with the pre-made decks and all, just to
Right.
like make sure they're having like an okay time. Because also I was thinking about it a little bit, and it's very possible that they're just like, I'm bringing this like deck that like is pre-made and all, like, and with no expectation of winning and all, or like they
Right.
don't have the experience to be like, oh wow, like I wasn't even allowed to play the game. Like they might just be like sitting there watching everyone else as well and just being like, oh, I'm like learning from this. I can learn how to like play my cards better through that. So I was thinking about that a little bit, and I think that you took a good take on it to just kind of monitor and also recognize that you're aware that these cards are dominant and are in every single like blue deck and whatnot, but that maybe even though Ian's been playing for a bit and all, like that he might know it, like it's a good card, and so that's why he put it in his deck, but might not realize that that's like a linchpin kind of thing that's in every single one of the like. So yeah, that makes sense.
And nor is he actively playing against it where it's like a thorn in his side, right? Like he's the one asking about the Ristic study trigger. He's not the one being asked. Right?
Gotcha.
And that's a very different dynamic. So I just say all that to say, like, I don't think anybody has to get crucified, but I'm like, by and large, I still don't want to play against back to basics and shit like that. But also, you know, I don't got to go email the mayor or anything about it.
Gotcha. Do you have, and also another side note that just popped into my head.
No, that's fine.
Can two people in the same can you play the same decks against each other?
Yeah.
So two people could pick a deck with the same commander?
Yeah.
Okay. That was just a curiosity.
I can't imagine it's the most interesting thing for people to watch, but like,
well, if it's in a seed or if it's in an like commander format, you have four players, so
Right.
I mean, it's slightly less interesting than the interactions between 4 decks, but...
Right. And, like, the more competitive the table, the higher chance that you're going to see duplicate commanders. I think the more casual / fun side you go, the more you want to see 4 different commanders at the table. But like, it wouldn't be uncommon to see like 2 Timna Thrasios decks, a Nagila, and like a First Sliver. Like they're like 4 and 5 color decks trying to use pretty much the same combos, right?
Gotcha, okay.
So while you do see some diversity, a lot of the strategies are like, nah, this is just the best.
Okay.
And that's okay. But yeah, so we just had some fun games. I was playing Alela some more. I was really trying to get a sense of her as a deck with some of the new pieces I put in, and just getting to see those cards in action. So I'd taken out a couple of the Anthem effects. Anthems are cards that say your creatures get +1/+1 or +2/+2 or +1/+0, whatever. But it's like a thing of valor saying I buff all my creatures. So I had a bunch of those effects in there, but not many ways to replace cards in my hand. So I took out some of the Anthem effects because effectively Alela is an Anthem. She says other creatures with flying get +1/+0. So if you're relying on having your commander out more often than not, you don't need an Anthem in your hand because it's already in your command zone. So I was comfortably able to take 2 of those cards out, put in cards that say just draw a card, and added also some protection for my commander. So if people try and remove her, she'll stick on the battlefield. And then some evasion, so then when she swings in, she can't be blocked. I can start, stacking up the commander damage. I can use her lifelink more effectively. And I've been able to see some of those swaps as well, like not just know that they're in the deck, but have drawn them and got to actively play with them. And knowing, like when you see them and knowing what it could have been, you're just like, oh my God, this feels so much better. Thank God I did that. So pretty much every swap I saw, and I was like, yeah, this is just so much better.
Nice.
So I'm really, really happy with where that deck is. There is one more swap out that I'm going to make. I have a Mentor of the Meek in there, which should come out for a Biden of Thassa. So it's basically 1 card draw effect for a better one. Mentor of the Meek is like really conditional, but the Biden of Thassa will give me just way more options to draw way more cards. So that's going to be another swap going in, and then I think I'll be able to kind of shelf Alela for a little while and say, like, I'm kind of happy where you're at. I've gotten a bunch of good games in, a bunch of fun games in with her, like seeing a bunch of dynamic interactions with the cards and such.
Nice.
So just really happy where that deck is. And then I played 1 game on Intet, which I think is like one of my sleeper favorite decks. So Intet the Dreamer, he's a dragon. The idea is I want to manipulate the top card of my library and then cast it for free, basically, with his ability. Okay. So I want to, get something really big and sweet onto the top, swing in, cast it for free. And while I didn't win the game, I did get to do a whole bunch of that. Got to tutor up my draw 7, cast that for free, do some proliferation, got my commander out, and I got taken out pretty quick because apparently I was doing some scary things. But yeah, it's just always fun when that deck does its thing. Casting things for free is just always fun.
Do you ever have to sometimes slow yourself down from you maybe have a really good thing that you could play, but now it's just swing?
No, if I
don't see
almost any reason to hold spells in hand. I'm gonna play them out because I'm also going for game speed.
Gotcha.
I want the games that I win to be the turn 7s and the turn 8s and the turn 9s. So
gotcha.
I go if I have cards in hand, if I have things to do, I do them.
It's just puts you in a position where it's so easy for them to be like, oh shit, he's rampaging right now, 3v1 .
Oh, and they do for sure, but
Yeah.
I think that is the format. Like it happens with Ian too. Like Ian gets his commander out on turn 2, and we're just like, ah, fuck. Well, I guess he's dead first, and everybody just swings in, blows up his shit. So that is what
Yeah.
happens. Like whoever gets their foot out first tends to be like trounced on a little bit. But my play style, I don't really care,
Yeah, that's
So
fair.
I just play my cards. I want to see them do their thing, and
I was thinking more in like a CEDH format, like where you try not almost like to avoid drawing attention to yourself, kind of like. I was curious if that's it's kind of little. It's a little mind game like locking up the brakes into the final turn before the DRS zone. Like you're like, I gotta hold it up so that I can just let like stay under the radar and then just wail on some people. So
and a lot of times, like you had said, you will see it more in CDH tables where
makes sense more. Like you said, you're playing for game speed. You're playing for just like to play your cards and have fun in your pod, and also like in the CEDH. I would assume that some things would be different. I'm not too shocked that that's one of the things that's different in that you're like playing those mind games and utilizing like all components of like playing, not just the cards to get you the W.
yeah, I tend to use politics like minimally to 0 in most commander games. I think often the politics don't seem like weighty enough. Like I don't know. I understand that there's some uses for it where it's like, oh, what things should I kill with this spell? Or, I'm trying to get this thing online. Can you not attack me? Some of that stuff is okay, but I often avoid that from my side of the table. I try and just use my cards to win, and if I get killed,
Well,
I get
I
killed.
think you're also pretty happy with like where your decks are at for like as a whole. So like obviously there's some that I'm sure you like want to add something here or like change something there, but like
Right.
overall like you've I feel like you have put together some pretty solid decks, and so you're just like, I'm just gonna play them. Like I'm happy with them. I'm not gonna.
Right.
I don't need to do this other stuff because I
Right.
like my decks. I think that they are competitive, and like I am happy to just see how it shakes out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that
overall.
makes sense.
I know some players in the group tend to use a little more of the politics and the words and whatever. And it's all fun and games, but yeah. But those were just some games from this week. I think we'll have some more coming up. Hopefully we'll get to play some this weekend and hopefully a little early next week. So maybe I'll have some more games, some more insights for us here for the pod. But overall, that's kind of all I have here for the evening. Aaron,
Cool.
would you like to give me your flavor of the week and we can get out of here?
Can do. So for my food, I'll try and keep this all short. For my food, it was for my birthday dinner that we went out to. I got sushi, and so I'm a huge sushi fan. So that was delicious. They did a spot on job. So it was really solid dinner on Friday for my music, and it's not really as much that something I've listened to. It's something I'm thinking about doing because it popped into my brain today when I was driving, and I'm like I should probably do this. I obviously there's certain artists that I listen to a lot of them, like Kendrick, like Mac Miller, and so there I obviously have favorite songs and all.
Mm-hmm.
I am thinking about putting together a playlist of the songs from some of my top artists that I don't really listen to much. So like things
The
that
deep
are
cuts.
stuff that like maybe it's not as like thematic to the playlist that I'm putting on, or it doesn't quite match the vibe. Like Mac has such a range with his styles and all, and so like as does Kendrick and a number of other artists that not every song fits into the same like general kind of level of excitement or energy or whatever. And so I think I might put together some playlists for the artists I really enjoy of their songs that I don't listen to as much, because I think that I might find that I will enjoy those songs more than I do now, where right now I'll sometimes, if certain ones come up, I'm just like, skip, like on to the next thing. So I want to make a like skip track playlist and kind of just out of curiosity see if it gives me some, maybe because I haven't listened to them as much, maybe there are things that I've missed from the songs in terms of lyrics or storytelling or things like that. So I think I'm gonna look to do that over the next little while.
That's pretty cool. I like that idea.
Yeah, I thought it. I was thinking about it. I'm like, I've skipped a few of these songs. I'm like, maybe I should give them more of a shot instead of like first 5 seconds being like, no, I'm not feeling this right now.
Right.
So, but then for my visual medium, I kind of have one show and one other thing. So first one, for my birthday as well, Colleen surprised me taking me to the Museum of Illusions in Philadelphia, which was pretty cool. They had all sorts of little like different perception difference things, like you're standing like right next to each other in a room, but due to like the floor being slanted or this and that, like one person looks tiny and the other person looks huge, like difference in like perspective. Some other like pretty cool exhibits and all, like mirror room where you're just surrounded by mirrors and you're seeing like your reflection and like all throughout, like endless images of yourself and all sorts of different puzzles and things like that. So that was kind of cool. We went through that and had a nice time. But I also just started yesterday watching an anime called Kuroko's Basketball. It's like
Nice.
I guess it's it's a sports anime. I wouldn't call it like a school. What did you say? Schoolyard anime, or what was is that the term?
I would call it a schoolyard anime.
So it's not quite like that, because there's really like not any part of it that that hinges on like school or being in a classroom. It's just that they go to different schools, so they're on different basketball teams. But it was very good, like for being not like my typical. Most animes I've watched are like very hero, like fantasy type, sci-fi type oriented, where there's like a bad guy and a good guy, and this is like different, but it has it's still very like fun and exciting to watch. So I've been enjoying that since I started it, and I'm probably gonna blow through it because I've enjoyed it thus far. But that is my flavor of the week. What do you got for us?
So I just want to comment, one of the Mac Miller songs that I skip all the time, and I stand by it, I have no regrets, is Euphoria on watching movies with the sound off.
Yeah.
The final track before the bonus tracks, it's garbage. It is garbage. It is barely even a song.
It's going on the playlist.
I mean, hey, you do you, man. But yeah, that's one of probably my least favorite songs just in general. I don't know why I dislike it so much. I can't like put an actual finger on it, but I skip that one every time. Now,
Gotcha.
Flavor of the week, my food. Ben brought in some homemade cookies from his wife to Magic on Monday, so shout out Ben and the homemade cookies. They were amazing. And for my music / interesting, it's not music at all, but I was watching a couple of Channel 5 News with Andrew Callahan, a couple of his videos, and my God, he just depicts my favorite people in the world. Let's just say that. And the videos are amazing.
Well, you got to explain a little bit, because I have no idea who this man is.
Okay, so
Is he like weather? Is he like the main anchor?
No, he's the main like journalist, and he goes to gatherings and like party type things, and he's basically doing like investigative journalism.
Like a
So
new club opened, or like a new like
no, like the
no?
Utah Rap Festival, or
Oh.
the like the QAnon rally, or like like shit like this, and going and just putting a mic in people's faces and like, hey, what do you think?
Wait, what's his
And
name?
Andrew Callahan with Channel 5 News. The fucking, I wasn't trying to do this, but the all gas, no brakes guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
They took his shit, and so he went and like made his own, he went out on his own, and he's killing it. All of his productions are fucking hilarious. Like, it is really giving me a sense of like, this guy's doing the gritty journalism, man. Like, they're literally driving around in an RV with film equipment and just putting a mic in in people's faces, and are just like, hey man, what's going on, blah blah blah, just getting a sense of like the vibe and the environment. And so many of them have just been hilarious,
Well,
and well edited.
He is hilarious, and I think the best part is he like you said, he just puts a microphone in front of him. He's not really like, I mean, he does a little bit of like nudging them and all to like provoke them to talk in general.
Right.
But he lets them go down whatever fucking path, and like does not deter them, or like, I wouldn't say he really encourages them to do anything other than just keep talking.
Yeah, he just talks to these people, and that's what's amazing. There's like, the one thing I have to say is a lot of people seem to think that interviewers want you to just be yelling incessantly into the microphone. So that's pretty funny. A lot of the places he's got, obviously, there's alcohol and whatever. But yeah, so I've just been enjoying them a whole lot.
That's awesome.
Good,
I love it.
modern investigative journalism. And then for my visual medium, me and Sarah have gone back to the beginning. We're starting the Infinity Saga from Jump, and we're going to go through and watch all the films down through Far From Home. So the Marvel Cinematic Universe before the...
Gotcha. Okay.
All the junk at the end.
Yeah. Wait, hold on.
I think she has seen most of them, some of them only, a little bit. So we have Iron Man 2, and Thor,
so
all
you're
in the books, and we're going to go through and do the whole thing, and so far we've just been enjoying it.
2 questions.
You're muted.
2 questions.
Go for it.
Are you watching them in order of when they came out?
Release date. So then the post credits are, so we're trying to watch it in the order it was all released.
Okay.
So then when we hit each of the post credit scenes, we can get the like, oh shit.
This is what's like
chronological order. It's very different.
Yeah, it is. Because I've done both.
Okay.
So I was curious because I've gone through and I've like done it with like starting with Captain America and like going into like going up through and all. But I think that is a fun way to, because the cutscenes and also like little like tidbits lead very well into each other that they have in the movies. They did a nice job with that, of leaving kind of like little Easter eggs almost of like
of things to come, and depending on the order, they might be like nudging at something that like, oh wait, that already happened though, we already saw that.
Right, exactly. And so that's cool. The other question that I had was, wait, so tell me, which movie did you start with?
So we started with Iron Man, and then
you didn't start with the Incredible Hulk with
why
Edward Norton?
There's no reason to, dude. There's no reason to. Like, I get it.
No, I'm just fucking with you.
Literally, the only thing...
It's not the same actor. It's not the same, like... No, I was just messing with you.
So no, we didn't waste our time on that.
Good. I'm glad.
All we did is went to YouTube and said, hey, give me the post-credit scene, because that's all that matters, is where Robert Downey Jr. goes into the bar and is like, blow me, General.
Yeah.
Whatever. But yeah, it's cool. I'm not looking forward to some of them, but overall, there's a lot that we're like...
Which ones are you not looking forward to?
Dude, like...
Iron Man 3?
Iron Man 3's kind of shit. The element of Iron Man 3 that I absolutely loved. I hate the villain. I hate all of it, but the element of it that I do really like is him like meeting an individual that was directly affected by his actions and the consequences of having superheroes.
Yeah.
And the line with that little kid, me and Sarah were talking about it, where
That's a great fucking scene.
It's amazing.
Like that is my favorite part of that whole movie is that whole interaction.
Thank you.
Oh, 100%.
Asks where your mom is. He says down at the bar and says, "Oh, where's your dad?" He went out to get scratchers, and I guess he won because he never came back. It's just like, oh my god, you feel it so much. So I love that kid. But yeah, so like there's some things that I'm like overall not excited to get to.
Oh yeah, no, I get it.
The whole thing as a whole within only a couple days, I'm electric. I'm really looking forward to it.
Nice. You'll have to keep us up to date with where you're at, because there's some that I need to rewatch. I haven't seen the newest Spider-Man yet, so I do need to see that, but I kind of want to get Colleen to watch through a bit more. I can't just jump her right into that, so.
Also, that's not in the Infinity Saga. That's all.
Well, but I consider the first one to be.
Yeah, Homecoming and Far From Home are in the Infinity Saga.
And so, like, I don't want to necessarily jump her. I want to watch the Spider-Man series with Colleen, but I can't watch the Spider-Man series, this Spider-Man series, without kind of dragging her through the rest of the movie to some extent. Not necessarily all of them, but at least there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you want the person that you're watching it with to be as informed as possible, yeah, you have to drag them through a whole lot.
Because there's a lot of like little side things that they say or do, or like after Civil War, going into Homecoming or Far From Home, to just be like, wait, what? Like, oh, like they're talking about what? I didn't see that in the last movie.
Yeah, so, a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah, but very cool. Looking forward to hearing about your progress. That's awesome. They're great movies.
I think it's just a great piece of cinema, honestly. I think the farther and farther we get away from it, the more and more it's going to shine. I think it's one of my favorite things that I like have, not that I've been a part of, but that I got to watch as it happened. I'm like, I think it's fucking dope. I'm not like the biggest superhero fan, but I love an idea fleshed out all the way to completion and like not that many blemishes on it.
There's not many
really good.
There's not many things that do it that well. There's not that many franchises or anything that have that kind of like really good continuity, and also like I love Star Wars. Huge Star Wars fan. Star Wars was made in the 70s. Star Wars was made when CGI first came out, and Star Wars is being made now. Like, there are huge disparities in the quality of those movies in terms of visual quality. So, like, the story writing and everything, I'd say, is pretty good, but, like, certain things are, like, out of place here and there, and they just aren't as cohesive as, like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe for these recent, the Infinity series, as you referred to it, so...
yeah, it's just so impressive. Happy to be going back through it.
Very cool.
We have been fucking talking your ears off for too long, Aaron. Let's get them out of here.
Cool. So check us out, of course, on Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. You can hit us up on Twitter. Interact with us. Let us know what you're thinking, what your flavor of the week is, what your rose, thorn, and seed are. We would love to hear about it, but thank you all for listening. Justin, that's all I got.
Like, comment, and subscribe everywhere you're listening. New episodes every Thursday. thank you, everybody, so much for listening. We appreciate your time so much. This has been another episode of the Tall and Short of It podcast. Peace out.
Later.